Alright, well, most of you guys know Luke. He's our resident master of tying for everything that swims, and today he's going to show you some of his local and special bass patterns. So, go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, so these patterns, most of them, will catch a bass. It doesn't really matter too much what it looks like, but what these are kind of the streamers that stay up in the upper part of the water column. They're about my favorite patterns to fish just because you can see most of the takes. The takes are pretty visual with them. So I'll tie this one. This one's called a lot lizard. I'll tie it first. A lot of these, like these ones with the clear cure heads, are kind of cut down musky pike type flies. So get going here. And with these, with the head being towards the middle back instead of right up on the eye, like most of the flies, I start the thread just a little bit farther back.
What
This is a one B10S.
you call this a lot lizard?
Yep.
OT?
Yep.
Still OT?
Yeah, and all the two that I'm tying, both the step-by-step instructions are on our website too.
Oh, and what's that?
The Midwest Drift.
Don't forget the
If I'm tying rabbit zonker strips in the back, I like to put a mono loop across the back. It kind of keeps the tail from fouling the hook quite as much. It'll still foul every once in a while, but nothing like if you don't put one in, and it only takes a few seconds to tie one in.
Oh, and what, I apologize, what weight thread you use?
This is UTC 140.
Okay.
These bass flies are kind of fun because you can be about as creative as you want to. Add as many legs and as much flash and all that.
Wake up, Bill. It's a 1,000-yard stare we used to talk about in the Army.
Well, I was just thinking, he knew right off what thread he uses, and yes, I'd say black.
I pretty much tie it with
He
that.
ties flies, you and I just stab it. That's kind of...
The UTC 140 I pretty much use on everything, unless if I'm tying size 18, 20s, I'll go down to 70, but that 140 holds pretty good. And it's not super bulky.
That's a tough thread.
Uni's better. Uni's better.
I don't like uni because it doesn't stretch as much. So a couple pieces of Flashaboo here. You can put in about just as much or little as you want. So I tie it in towards the back and tie it up, and then just fold over the top half and tie it back down. The most about time-consuming thing with these is the head, that clear cure head. The rest of them's pretty easy. This is just a barred rabbit strip.
Tiger. Reminds me of the bass baits they call fire tiger, that color. You've probably seen that.
Or Tony the Tiger.
Yeah.
Is that a magnum strip or regular?
This one's regular. I'll tie them in magnums too. But this one's just regular. So this is a pattern that, I don't know if you guys got the flyer that Kevin sent out, but that bass that I had caught on the front of it was caught on this. Sight fished off a farm pond dock.
You know, I used to fish bass tournaments, had a 150 horsepower boat and all that garbage.
Yeah.
Everything. Biggest bass, caught more big bass out of small ponds and strip pits than I ever caught out of a big lake. Big reservoirs.
Yeah, those big reservoirs can be fairly challenging,
Oh, and
especially with the
boats
fly rod.
Boats just tore me up. I couldn't. I got too old to ride in those things anymore.
So 2 plumes of marabou. We'll go one on top, one on bottom here. Kind of hide that bulk here. I like fishing these with the floating line just because it keep it up higher. That's about my favorite thing with bass fishing is watching the take. Seeing them come out and chase it down.
Whoosh. Best sound in the world. Whoosh.
Well, actually, I also caught about the biggest crappie I've ever caught in my life on one of these. I like this orange color. You can tie in about any color though you want and still catch fish. Alright, now I whip finish it here and then we're going to slide a jig skirt on. And you can also use, if you want, the sill legs. I like the jig skirts just because it pushes those little legs out a little bit more. If you tie those sill legs in, you know, it kind of stays a little bit lower, tighter profile.
So you buy a regular jig skirt from?
Yeah. I live in Liberty, so Rogers Sporting Goods is right by me.
That's a terrific place. I haven't been in their new place, but they've always been top notch.
So with these, if you want to push a little bit more water, if you tie it in with the long legs facing forward, it'll kind of keep that wider profile. If you don't want that, you can turn it around this way, push it on like that, and then I'll trim these legs off if I'm going to fish it like that. I kind of like where it pushes a little bit more water. There's a, I don't know exactly how they make these, but there's a rubber kind of tube in the middle here, and you can just slide it on.
They have children chained to tables push
Yeah.
those things together.
I thought he was having to tie all those legs in there.
No, you buy those made out of like that.
Yeah.
Bass Pro would be closer to us.
Oh, I didn't bring any. What I like to do. Where'd Zach go? Zach. Oh, can I get it? You get a rubber band?
Yep. Thick, light one, or
Just a regular sized one. If I'm at home, I get that just like the wire and kind of do soft wraps around this just to keep these back so I don't tie it into the next marabou and the head and stuff. It just kind of keeps everything pushed back.
Like off of a bread wrapper kind of wire?
Yeah, and also the tying wire. Thanks. But it, I don't know if I can do this with the rubber band, actually. I thought it was a good idea, but I've never tried it.
So what do you like to put in front of that? Just some tying wire?
Up here, to hold it back, yeah, tying
Yeah.
wire just to kind of brush it back. Or like she said, a twisty from a bread sack would work just fine. Just anything to keep it out of the way.
Do you ever go ahead and put a weed guard on this?
I don't fish weed guards very often, but yeah, you could. Then just reattach the thread in front of it. And then really all it is finishing it out with more marabou and then I'll show you how I build those clear cure heads. They're a little time consuming, but they usually turn out pretty nice. And really, like with those musky flies and stuff, a lot of those guys, if they're ones that they're fishing with clients and stuff, they don't even finish the head out. They just make a cone head with the thread and put that Sally Hansen's or like that loon hard head or whatever on it and call it good. I think Zach sold me some pretty high quality marabou here.
Gotta watch that, Zach.
Yeah.
Flipping
I
stuff
think
from
it came
under
from
the
Bass
counter.
Pro.
It probably came out of Zach's bag is what it probably came
Kind of
out
like
of.
the guy that sells next day yesterday's donuts.
Oh, I can imagine.
All right. So then again, I'll put one on.
Gray market parts.
This is
One
just
on
awful,
top.
Luke. Shameful.
The what? The marabou that
No,
you
this
sold me?
fly here.
Oh,
What do you have to do? Cut that rubber band off in a minute?
yeah. I'll have to trim it off here.
You again tie it on top and bottom.
Yeah, top and bottom again. And if it gets spaced out very much, I'll add some in on the sides if I don't like the profile. But usually I can kind of pinch this around the hook and kind of get it to cover a little bit more. I like to save a little bit of bulk up at the front just because it makes it easier to build that head. But now it's just building his head up, kind of like getting all that marabou covered, all those little strands forward, and then I just start building it back as much as I can.
So the head is just thread. It's just a build up.
Yeah, it's thread, and then I'll use that clear cure with the stick-on eyes.
I am. Oh yeah. That's a great fly.
Call it the lot lizard because it twitches so much in the water with that jig skirt and stuff on. We figured it twitches as much as a lot lizard on Adderall. And I'll tie that. This is on a size 1. I usually tie it like 2 and 4. It's typically what I fish. A little bit easier on the shoulder and elbow. But these really aren't that heavy until once they get good and saturated, they start sinking a little bit more and get a little bit heavier, but they're actually not too terrible to throw. Use about a half a spool of thread building this thing up. Like I said, a lot of guys call that good and just put that hard as nails or some kind of hard glue finish on it. I like to finish it with the eyes. We'll finish this. These are 5 30-second hologram eyes. Those, I kind of like those, just the plain kind of pearl flash ones. They look pretty good in the water. I'm always surprised how much they actually shine when they're in the water. You can really see them when you're stripping it back. So then these stick-on eyes, I just put one on each side. Sometimes you have to glue them because these eyes, I don't know if you guys use them much, but sometimes the adhesive on them's not that great.
Amen.
Or the card that they come on, you know, peel it up and you got the card on the back instead of the sticky side. But I try to get them as even as I can just to kind of help the head stay symmetrical here. This is tack-free Clear Cure. It's a little bit thicker than that Hydro, and I'll put a couple drops of it on it. It's just you don't have to layer as much. You can just get by with coating it like twice instead of 50 times or whatever. I put a drop between the eyes. I don't know if this stuff got cold or what. I had to squeeze pretty hard to get that out. I thought I was going to squirt out half the bottle on that. Then I'll cure it. You would have thought I would have got new batteries from last time. I looked this morning, there's one AAA in the entire house. Almost went and picked apart some kids' toys to put new batteries in.
You get in trouble for that if they decide to play with it.
Yeah. Well, I figured they're probably more ran down than these. Alright. Then I'll go on the underneath side and do the same thing. Try to work a little bit around the sides just to kind of help the nose out so there's not just one big clump and then on top and bottom. So it kind of works around the hook instead of just sitting on top and bottom.
So you put the head about a third back?
Yeah. And those little ones are basically the same fly without the jig skirt in between the two strands of marabou, but basically it's the same thing, just a little bit smaller. You can get as wild as you want with the colors, and I like the orange and chartreuse ones. And that gray and white one fish is pretty good, especially if those white bass are busting shad boils and stuff.
Those guys I used to fish with would say that there is pang. P-H-A-N-K, pang. That's nice.
So after that clear cure, the thick stuff kind of sets up, then I'll do the hydro. It's a lot runnier. It kind of helps fill in the cracks. And I don't know if it's just me or this stuff sets up a lot harder than that tack-free stuff. Kind of gives it a better finish. I don't know if I just don't have the patience to hold that light on that other stuff as long or what, but I can't ever get that tack-free to set up as hard.
I think a big fish, wouldn't it?
Hmm? Yeah, well, as he said, this is actually the same tie without the jig skirt between the two points of marabou, so I can see that.
And that little one's actually, there's a pattern out called a double bunny. It's two rabbit strips coming off the back, but same pattern. That's just a single one. I kind of like throwing lighter flies if I can get away with it.
What size you tie these littler ones in?
Those are probably on a size 4, I think. But I'll tie 2, 4. I don't ever hardly tie them down to a 6.
So say Scott Sanchez is the one credited with the double bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Then I won't do it, but I like finishing it off with one coat of Sally Hansen just because it makes it harder and a little bit more durable. That clear cure, once it gets wet and you start stripping it and bumping it off limbs and rocks and stuff, sometimes it kind of gets foggy looking and kind of tacky again just a little bit. If you put that hard as nails on it, it keeps it from doing that. So I'm going to cut this rubber band off here, and this one's done.
He's got a good head.
Those heads are pretty easy to do. I think they turn out pretty good, but like I said, I'm sure you probably catch just as many fish without the head and just the thread comb. Get this cleaned up here. I guess I could wait and have Zach clean all this up. We're not done here. So the next one's this minnow pattern. First, these chasers, I'll show you how to tie these. You can add them to just about any streamer. Basically, it's that 20-pound mono with a flash pom-pom on the end of it. But what I like about it, it kind of hangs out to the side, and when you're tight stripping it, it pulls it in closer, and it almost looks like something's chasing this around the water. Especially in the ponds and stuff, you'll see like little bluegill coming up and trying to snag this end, and then as they start messing with it, I think it attracts some of the bass, and you see a big dark shadow come up and eat this. So it's kind of fun watching all the fish chase it,
Like I say, it's like that tying a little jig on the end of a zero strip, which was an absolutely deadly technique.
Right.
'Cause, or any top water bait for that.
Well, why don't we tie the big one chasing the little one?
Yeah.
That would make more sense to me.
You mean like the toys we had? Remember the toy where the big fish swallowed the little fish? Or you're too young.
I'm just a baby.
Yeah, a little wind-up toy I had when I was a little kid.
Now we get their attention. Though.
Use something like that downtown.
I think with the little one chasing the big one, it's kind of like when you see those little birds chasing off those
Yes, that's true.
big
Hawks and
birds.
things,
That's true.
Yeah, kind of
That's
messing with
true.
them.
Watching them thinking, don't you have any sense?
Right.
They'll kill you if you don't get away.
The easiest way I found to make these flashes is actually trimming a toothpick and putting the toothpick in the vise. I'm sure there's other ways. This way is pretty simple. So I'll cut a toothpick off, about in half.
Here's your other half.
Put this whole toothpick in the vise there.
touch the wrong button.
Quick, take Mark's picture.
Picture of a picture.
It just freaks me out because I started photography with a speed graphic.
I'll get down to that.
This does more.
20-pound mono again. I like the. I mean, I use this for those guards to keep those strips from fouling, and use this as those connections too. I like burning the end, kind of like you're making some mono eyes, just because when you slide this forward, that
Just
ball at the end of it kind of helps keep it in place.
No, this is stupid of me. You stuck a toothpick in there.
Mm-hmm. Half a toothpick.
Yeah, and then I'll tie this in here. Kind of got to hold the toothpick as you're making the tight wraps, just because you'll break it off. Just kind of give it a pinch with your fingers. You can kind of keep it in place. And this is rainbow wing flash. I'll do it in red. I mean, any kind of flash. I kind of like this wing flash just because it's a little bit thinner, and you can kind of make it a little bit kind of bushier looking. You could probably get by with that flashy boo as well. So same kind of deal as that other flash. I like just tying it in and then folding it over and finishing it off. Kind of get two clumps for one that way.
Now this, I'm presuming you tie all the way around.
Yeah.
So the pointed end of the toothpick points towards the rear of the big fly. Making sense. Yeah, this is making sense. Okay.
I really that pointed in just because I can get a little bit more into the vise, a little bit more bite. I don't like. I mean, these will open up pretty wide, but you can kind of get by with. I feel like it's a little bit more stable, anyways. So I kind of build up the thread around the front here, and yeah, like sometimes you can get this spaced out enough where you're covering up the bottom too, and you don't have to add another clump. I didn't quite get that done, so I'll add another small clump here. You can, I think this year they came out with these where you can actually buy them already made, but pretty easy to make. They're probably twice as expensive, 3 times as expensive if you buy them.
Again, made by small children chained to tables.
Right.
They got nothing else to do.
Out in the jungle somewhere. Yeah.
So I'll just try to get the kind of nose built up on that pom-pom where it semi-looks clean. Then just whip finish it. I coat this too with with a little bit of hydro. You can use that hard as nails as well, or like that loon hard head stuff. That I just like the hydro because this one actually cures pretty quick and you don't have to wait for it to dry. I get a little anxious with that other stuff and start tying, and then next thing you know I have clumps of marabou stuck to the head of the fly and all the scraps on the table.
Kathy, you can tie them up and make Bill do stuff.
I don't think so. It's a little tedious for me.
I'll stick this in here and trim off. I don't want to cut that mono though. But then we'll attach it to that minnow here.
Yeah, it's wrapped in thread too. I didn't realize that was a toothpick in there too.
There's a way you can tie it where you put like the mono in the vise and do it. It's just that
It's just a little
toothpick
tiny
kind of
piece.
helps stabilize it enough. I have a headache trying to keep that line tight enough I can tie on it.
And the toothpick, that little bit of wood probably keeps it floating
A little
Kinda
bit,
keeps
yeah.
it from
All right, so this is a 1 B10S again. What's this one? This one I use those Clear Cure. I think they're called Realize. They're that soft plastic dumbbell eye. There it is. And the two that are on the table, that green one and that gray one, then I tie it in blue, white, and pink as well. You can tie it in any color you want and it fishes well, but those three are kind of my go-to colors. So I'm just going to build a little bit of a thread base to give those eyes something to sit on. With that long craft fur tail, those things, they really look like they're swimming pretty good in the water. So then figure 8 these guys in
And
here.
I see you use fairly limp mono for it. You don't use extremely. You get more action with a limp mono.
Yeah, that's just 20 pound.
Yeah.
My least favorite part of any fly, figure 8ing in eyes. This is where I need like a caddy, where I need like Zach to step in and knock these eyes out for me.
Your tying assistant.
Yeah.
Are the eyes on a little Dumbo or what? Did I miss something there?
So they're Clear Cure. I think they're called Realize, but they're
Okay.
it's a soft dumbbell. It's a
Yeah.
like some kind of poly something. All right. That's good enough.
Yeah, no, it was plastic dumbbell or poly.
Yeah.
You say something like that.
So I get the thread back here because we're gonna make her tail. Whatever colors you want. I like keeping the light colors on the belly and the kind of more prominent colors on top. Just kind of gives it that minnow shad kind of look. This is Crystal Flash. Bass flies aren't really a bass fly if they don't have flash on them. I'll pull it over.
Yeah, you can't sell a bass lure without a bunch of glitter on it.
Yeah.
Of course.
Alright, so then clumps of this craft fur. Blue's going to be the top color here. So I'll pick it out like almost like you do when you're tying elk hair. Get all that scraps out of the bottom, under fur stuff. Alright. This guy's going on top here. Now the belly, invert it and add the white. With this, I like to kind of split this in half if I can, and get a little bit of fibers on each side of the hook when I put it on. If not, you get them all kind of tied to one side, and then you have some exposed hook, which is probably not a big deal. It just, this kind of gives it a little bit more coverage and finished look. Trim this down so I don't have quite as much bulk up front. This cactus, or it's a hard chenille. I don't know the actual term for it. What's this stuff called?
What is it?
This chenille.
Pearl chenille?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
So a small strand of it and wrap it forward just to kind of cover up the body here. This stuff likes to pick up a bunch of fibers as you're turning it, so I try to pick them out as I go. You can, like, sometimes I'll add some lead wraps under this as well. Just kind of help get it down just a little bit. Because this one really, it takes a minute to absorb some water and start sinking. It stays on top for a little bit. And also hide in some lead eyes and stuff like that. My little kid fishes with the little Princess spinning rod and reel, and I'll make some of these flies heavy enough so you can cast them with that. She actually, on an unweighted one of those little single bunnies last weekend, caught 3.5 pound bass on that little run. Black and purple one. I think that's her favorite part's picking out the colors. All right, another clump of this on the bottom. Another clump of blue here. Stuff's like that troll hair, that
I
troll
know.
doll hair.
It was reminding me of My Little Pony, those
Yeah.
colors too.
Well, I know I'm going to end up cutting the thread when I do this, but the base of that stuff kind of bulks up, and then when you're trying to get your other material in there, you're already starting where you want, about at the same profile as you want your other material. All right, this is where I go ahead and add the flash. I kind of get an idea of how long I want it. You can make it as long as you want, but I usually make it just a few inches past the tail of the actual fly. And I burn the end again on this just to kind of help it lock in there.
So that little nub keeps it from slipping out.
I think it helps, yeah.
Luke just likes the excuse to play with the ball.
Yeah. And you can tie it either way. With this mono being on that spool, it's kind of got a natural curve to it. If you do the curve side in, it rides a little bit closer to the fly. If you kind of bow it out a little bit, it kind of sticks out a little bit farther, and you get a little bit more of that side-to-side movement as you're stripping it. I usually try to do it where it's bowed out just a little bit to get that extra movement. Sometimes, though, this thing spins on you, and you don't quite get it locked in like you want it, but I don't know if the bass really care.
Maybe Luke never has, but it occurs to me, Kat, to your question earlier, I think you could tie a version of this with the flash in front too. Like a bigger fish chasing a smaller fish. I think you could. That'd probably be deadly with like a bluegill color on the streamer.
Yeah.
Chasing like a tiny minnow.
So then this is Sinuo's laser dub. Finish off the head with it. Just kind of get the clump brushed out so you can get some long fibers. I'll do one clump of each color in the front, and then everything else, in the back, and then everything else is in front of the eyes.
Can we just buy these here? Or from
We're raffling
your,
all these
yeah.
off.
You don't sell flies on your website, right?
No, I don't have it. I wish I had the time to do something like that. Little kids in a real job kind of cuts into your fly tying. You either have the choice to tie flies or go fishing.
whole time cuts into mine.
Yeah.
Leisure.
So then same thing, I'll brush this back. You never can get all those tied in. So you're gonna have some scragglers with this, but I just kind of pluck them out. Before I move the thread to the front of the eye, I add some color to the sides. Kind of gives them that,
Gill look.
yeah, kind of gill plate color to them.
Again, this is prefer.
This is that Sinyo's laser dubbing. With this stuff, when you're doing those gill plates, a little color goes a long way, so you don't have to put a very big clump in there to get the look that you want.
That's such a good fly, Charlie, that I bet you and I could actually catch fish on that.
Yeah, not too heavy to cast either.
No. Oh.
They get a little heavier when they're wet.
Oh, I was say when it gets soaked up with water, you'll feel it. But
Yeah.
speaking of that, Luke, what weight do you use to cast this?
Pretty much for bass, I throw a 7 weight.
Okay. Yeah. One of my favorite rod sizes.
So that color got moved in, and it kind of covers up a little bit of that, fills in the body a little bit. There's kind of a little bit of a gap between the top and bottom, so kind of fills it in and gives it a little more color, a little more finished look. So I move the thread in front of the eyes, and then it's another clump of Sinyo on top and on bottom. Sometimes I'll just continue with the blue on top and the white on bottom, and other times I'll kind of make it a solid head, like keeping it all blue or whatever. You can kind of keep brushing this back and get that clump from behind to kind of blend in with the clump in front, so you don't, it kind of covers that gap that those eyes made. There it is. It's blending in with the table. I like tying these with smaller eyes too. Then you don't have to build quite as bulky of a head to get them to fill in. Zach needs to start carrying smaller ones.
We have a few.
These are the smallest ones I think they have here.
Yes, we have 5.
So then another clump of blue.
And then thread. Yeah, we do.
And what I'll do with this one is, instead of pulling it back going the same way, I'll just kind of work the eye through there and then keep this one in front of it
Relative to
and work it on the bottom.
we're 5 blocks but west of Antioch,
Or a mile and a quarter east of 35,
or a mile and a quarter east of 35.
right on 87th Street.
And it's the cross section. We're right at the corner of 87th and Grant, not 86.
Alright. Then I hit it with some hydro and I'm done.
Cool. That is a good looking fly. That's a great one.
Like I said, if you get on our website, under there's a fly tying page, and then if you click the bass link, both these flies are on there. It has the recipe and then pictures step by step on how to tie them. This one's called Maddy's Minnow, and that other one was the lot lizard. There's a few more of them on there as well. But these kind of patterns are probably my favorite to fish. I almost like fishing them better than the top of the water stuff for the bass, just because they hug that upper half of the water column, and like I said, almost all the takes are visual, so it kind of makes it fun. And if you got a clear day, you can watch, if you're in a farm pond, you can watch all the little bluegill and stuff chasing this tail as well. So all those flies on the table, if you guys want, we're going to do a $1 raffle. All the money goes to Project Healing Waters.